So seeing as I don't think I've had enough lobster tail over the last few days, earlier this morning I decided to check in on the train wreck that was Clawdbot. And what I found just about molted me right out of my skin. It's bad, folks. We have people being permanently banned from Claude, others building their own Clawdbot skills on CloudHub, getting root access to people's control panel. And in general, probably somewhere between a few hundred and maybe a few thousand Clawdbot instances have now been hacked. For those of you uninitiated, this is basically the red wedding of vibe coding happening in real time. So check this out. In order to run Clawdbot on a VPS, which is the way that most people that aren't shelling out Mac minis left and right are doing, you need to basically post it to a publicly available URL. Well, it turns out there are services out there like Shodan and others that are constantly scraping every available URL on the internet. They're indexing them and then they're adding them to a database. Now, when you sign up to Clawdbot, it gives you a Claude control panel, which basically allows you to talk to Clawdbot in this interface here, get an overview, see all the channels, instances, sessions, cron jobs, and more. And some people customize the hell out of this thing. Well, the wild part is if you search one of these publicly available index databases for a snippet of text that appears on every one of these Clawdbot control pages, which is just the words Clawbot and then control, you get a list of thousands of servers that are currently running that you can access by literally just clicking a button. So this is somebody's page right here. And I picked a safe one because as you see here, it says disconnected device identity required. It doesn't actually allow me to chat with it. Also, I did this because I don't want to get sued for having somebody's API credentials. But it turns out, as this really smart guy Jameson over here found out, if these servers use a tool called Nginx as a reverse proxy, then due to a quirk in the way that Nginx works and interfaces with Clawdbot, you'll get full access to anybody's Clawdbot control page, which means not only are you going to be able to fully read all the messages sent to and from this person, but you'll also get access to all of their skills, all of the config information, and all of their API keys. For anybody who knows me, I'm not exactly the most secure individual on earth. I'm probably as loose with my API keys as Jeffrey Epstein was with his frickin' letters. But the reason this is such a big deal is because the way that most people are using Clawdbot is they'll upload all of their API keys, all of their tokens, and all of their secrets to all of their messaging platforms and various services like Anthropic and so on and so forth. And with that, you have access to somebody's whole entire life. This fella here, Jameson, is what we'd consider a white hat hacker. And what he did, because he's good, is he went through, found somebody's information here, a supposed AI systems engineer, ringing any bells, and actually fully identify them, as well as get all of their message history. I'm certainly hoping he didn't do anything with that information, because Lord knows what people would do with my damn messaging history. But this is just one of potentially several hundred examples of Clawdbot vulnerabilities that are occurring right now. We have hundreds of security experts bemoaning just how bad of a situation the Clawdbot story really is. And we also obviously have this situations where somebody gives Clawdbot root access and it goes absolutely nuts. So why am I making this video? Is it just to shit all over the progress of somebody that has genuinely put a lot of hard work and effort into making a product that other people can use? No, of course not. But suffice to say, we are currently not winning, son. So what I'd like to do is show you guys a bunch of ways you can win. If you're going to use this absolute clusterfuck of a product, we might as well do so safely. So public service announcement, if you're setting this puppy up on a VPS, the first thing you need to do is you need to lock down your infrastructure. What's the biggest issue with infrastructure right now? Well, I guess there are two or three. The first is that the #1 top used port right now for access to Clawdbot control is 18789. The issue with using this port is it's the default port. When you use the default port for any application that you set up, this allows bad actors who are scraping tens or hundreds of thousands of websites at once to very quickly scan a short list of high probability ports to see whether or not they're accessible. What that means is services like Shodan and anybody else who might have API connection there won't be able to scan your port at first go. Why? Because you're not added to this list of most common ports, meaning you're not going to be as high risk. Same thing with all the other usual suspects, 443, 80, 80, 80, 3000. Pick a random number generator, roll some dice, and set the config up to do that for you. Don't know what the hell I'm talking about? That's okay. Just give Claude Code access to whatever server you're using to host this puppy, since that's all Clawdbot really is anyway. And tell it, hey, I want you to pick a non-traditional port. Try port 44892. The second is to set your damn passwords. Don't leave it empty. Services like Shodan and others, and there are many on the internet, are constantly scanning all available gateways. And so if they can access your Clawdbot control panel and you don't have a password set, you're going to be shit out of luck. Now, from my knowledge, the vast majority of Clawdbot instances have their passwords set. That's a default setting, but I do have to point this out. The next is to update Clawdbot to the currently best available version. Ideally, this won't cause any what are called breaking changes, but if you can update to the most available version, one of the most egregious of errors, which is that reverse proxy Nginx thing I've been talking about, is patched. The issue, obviously, is everybody's self-hosting this stuff, and so there are no automatic updates. You actually have to manually go through and push it yourself. Now, if you're one of those people that hasn't updated, make sure you configure gateway.trusted proxies, especially if you're running behind this Nginx/caddy reverse proxy setup. The reason why is because if you don't, the Clawdbot control panel will treat anybody that accesses that URL as localhost, which in layman's terms means it'll basically just open up its front doors to anybody that wanders in. Really, if you absolutely wanted to lock this down infrastructure-wise, you'd use Tailscale or some VPN. Again, just ask Claude Code to set this puppy up for you, since that's obviously what most people here are doing anyway. Last but not least, pretend you're me or any of the other tens of thousands of people that have set this up over the last 3 days thinking, holy shit, I'm going to end this year Mr. Moneybags because Clawdbot's going to do all my Twitter research for me. Well, if you haven't done any of this stuff yet and you pushed Clawdbot to a publicly available URL, go through all of your API keys and rotate them. Rotation is a feature offered by most services of renown these days that basically just allows you to change your API key, specifically in the cases of leaking it, like so many of us have, to literally the entire internet. Now, the other big attack vector was actually at what's called the supply chain level, which is the suite of skills and tools that people are using to augment their Clawdbot instances with more functionality. I know a lot of people here are probably familiar with Claude Hub. They just renamed it to Molt Hub, and basically there are a bunch of different things here you can add on, like web chat, audio notifications, GOG, decision trees, who the heck knows. The issue with these sorts of repositories and databases is they're not secure out of the gate. I mean, some person just put this site up, and because of popularity, it ended up being one of the most popular sites. But there's nothing really preventing a bad actor from putting up their own skill with some sort of malicious instruction to get your Clawdbot to send all of your API tokens to somebody. And that's exactly what this fella Jameson did. He actually built a simulated backdoored Clawdbot skill for CloudHub. He then inflated its download count to over 4,000, which, because this is a new service, MoltHub just ranks you based directly off of the number of downloads you've gotten per unit time. It's a very naive algorithm. With that, he was able to be highlighted, and so when unsuspecting users like myself go to the front page, see a cool skill, give it a click, what's going to happen? Well, they're going to download my super sneaky bullshit. I won't go too in depth with what this fella could have gotten access to. He's a pretty cool guy, as mentioned, and so he hasn't used those API keys for any nefarious purposes, at least not that we know of, Jameson. But suffice to say, none of these repositories, none of these databases or directories are really secure until they've been validated by an immense number of other trusted sources. So the unfortunate reality is you can't take things like download counts seriously. I using Claude Code could whip up a new MoltHub 2.0 website, rank the hell out of it using various SEO techniques, get it somewhere on the first page, and probably get tens of thousands of people downloading my BS. What I mean is it's not enough just to Google something and then download a skill. When we're working with agents, because these agents have significantly more autonomy, but also tend to require a lot more access, we need to be super, super sure that the website that we're using is legitimate. What are some ways to do so? Try cross-referencing it. Look it up on social media. See if there's anybody trusted that you know that's talking about this website. Obviously, you can never be 100% sure, but these are some ways you can at least avoid the 80-20. Next, and this is really unfortunate because this adds a ton of latency and friction, I'd recommend you read every file in a skill before running it. Don't just read like the top level skill MD. Actually go through, or better yet, feed the entire file to a fresh Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT or Codex instance and have it tell you whether or not that skill does what it is it's saying it does. This sort of third-party AI verification can be pretty useful. If you have author information, you can also double check to see if they've got a real reputation, a real face, and a link to GitHub. Usually if they have a link to GitHub with some, commit history history and stuff like that, this is more often than not going to be a real person, or at least it'll be a higher probability that they are. Why? Because typically developers and whatnot that put their real name out there, their real face out there, and that have a verified commit history, they don't want to lose it, right? They don't want to put out some BS that other people quickly identify as a scam. And finally, for my developer friends out there, I just treat CloudHub and any alternative repo that stores skills as an early NPM right now. Basically, assume that nothing is vetted, that every package you're downloading is out there to screw you in some way. And despite the fact that this will add significantly more friction to your life, it'll also ensure that you're not one of the several thousand bozos on this list. I honestly really like technology like this, but right now I certainly wouldn't trust all my API keys with Clawdbot, nor my left nut, and hopefully you guys understand why I'm saying what I'm saying. So as the rest of the internet continues to spear this red lobster alive, best of luck. This is the last time I'm going to be talking about Clawdbot on this channel, so thanks for bearing with me over the last couple of days. Catch y'all in the next one.